Rio de Janeiro, 28 November 2023, 18 hours, 8 minutes. We have a procedure indeed we have before. We have two mobiles in general. We must make the call twice to receive the mobile. And it's both my mobile, my instrument. With the embedded architecture as provider, one big tech company like the Google, with the architecture changed all the time and making you do the fresh start all the time to do not allow or have tolerance with the still data made by the interference at the instrument, at the signal, at the entire structure of communication. In general, we have the call to present, you know, our reasons to ourselves and also for the abusive procedure. Rio de Janeiro, City, 28 November 2023, 18 hours, 9 minutes. We are demonstrating the procedure we did. Generally, we are kind of calling for our own instrument that has a lot of problem since the architecture of the operational system, which put me as a customer with a damage or a decreasement at the utility of the instrument. Sometimes I can't have the access of my account at the instrument. Sometimes I have multiple instruments on my account. And we have also the architecture of the communication, the signal, the instrument, everything. And all this we have down here in the way we are exposed since 2014 as a security plan has a quite clear reason on present time observed at the other side, which is basically do everything and use as we told and exposed at the chat for criminal purpose. And the most relevant thing now is, kind of try to accept that your effort made in the last 48 hours, for instance, or the last year, is to, set any kind of hoax or misperception to allow the continuity of this criminal scam. Indeed, we had existed before 10 years as planning under judicial secrecy considering industrial protocols and secrets of core business that we will probably have at that time a tremendous judicial charge by interference by things made, and we will have all payments in one specific place, and then we will run the legal system of this place to research everything, and of course that you will get a lot of things in the way we did. The payment at the embassy is unveiling problems also in the area that receive or do the storage of the payment and research. And the interconnection as corruption codified by optimized value allow to unveil the criminal use of power on regular architecture by a simple thing, which is the variable doing this kind of power misuse. And historically, we can observe that this problem is really complex and structured since at least 1920, which was the when you have the American syndicate of crime and criminality. And nowadays things go, outside the box, I would say, because the criminal activity decided to entice, stalk, harass, do abusive procedure via the institutional power, consider that the place belongs to them and they will stay there forever, be untouchable, threatening the mankind. And it's not that romantic thing about the organized crime at the 20s, which was kind of all about the courage to sustain your reasons, or have something to achieve the gains, and then got retired and have a good life, but even under the risks after this. But nowadays we can observe that she is all things made has this profitable argument, but also the interest to hurt people, do the intimidation, and has murders and a lot of things that cross the limits of uh, this criminal activity, and indeed are kind of treasonous acts, conjuring, conspiracy acts in solidarity against the people as national or foreigners, not only in Brazil or USA, but in all areas, especially observed when those areas are hosting global events. And one more time, the most relevant thing is that the criminal system running as Brazil and peers in Brazil has the major offender, the Brazil, consolidated the architecture of criminality by judicial decision, the creation of law, the budget as public instrument of control, misguided since from the very beginning for the support of criminal needs at the financial system, as public financial system that is not having the authorities there their own payment and salary, and acting by conflict of interest all the time, doing insider trading and having markets of the state power, the institutional power, and the dignity of those institutions by the quality of person they have is null, do not exist, you know, despite the institution be a different thing. But on present time, since we have this criminal group as architecture that consider themselves the state owners, so they got charged as a state in the same way, because they are representing the state in a condition and the institution in a condition proven as power misuses to sustain power previously misused, and have the continuity of this cycle as disgrace, intimidation, institutional violence, state arbitrariness, and objects we offered to the antitrust justice in the United States and Europe. Source that the corruption, the functional corruption on procedure to steal your data, or take your things at the postal system, that sometimes is the US postal system or the European postal system, but you consider that can do things in a way that has no limit as criminal activity. The self-confidence that those groups have in Brazil and in other areas, when put interconnected in the way they are right now as pandemic crime, they kind of can be charged anywhere, suffer consequence anywhere by the kind of activity and criminals they are. They are pandemic criminals. So the idea is quite simple. Is have this that you got in touch criminal offenders at public departments Brazil with peers, public or corporate, domestic and international, since 2014. Everything you could steal, you use it to supply the needs of criminal organization, including the interest of yourselves at department, to sustain your position on present time. And by this, you are pushing and having the continuity of this hope uh, as the wrongdoings made. Instead, assume the mistakes, do the dismissal list, or accept the intervention by a judicial power or a architecture of power that have legitimacy to do this intervention and put the offenders out. You do the opposite. You keep the hoax, you keep the falsehood, the cowardice, the perfidy, and all quality subserved in each one of you as repulsive variables combined as a repulsive system that perpetrated crimes as an entire workflow against individual basic rights and guarantees and basic rights of groups like proved with the moral entity or as consumer and as human being that you try to take the life, destroy the personality, such a defamation campaign using abusive procedure and a lot of things over than 10 years, and all relevant issues against the crime you never considered. Only things that you use as supportive instrument for criminal purpose. It's quite clear, at least on my humble and limited sights, that you are all criminal offenders. And by this, the crimes perpetrated and the interests you hurt, even exclusive interest of specific individuals mentioned and declared that are an exclusive offer, allow the prison of you all. You have no courage, none of you, to be at the embassy and present your reasons by acts as misuse of power and criminal activity at the architecture of state and institutional power because you have no excuse and you must be sent to jail. And the courage you have against the individual, the citizen, the small business that you choke to push the criminal association or the illicit procedure that you make by hoax and try to get the signs, the signature of variables that are in good faith show a bit more why you must be convicted also as counterfeit because it's a crime in Brazil and a crime in all areas. It's the most explicit piece of functional corruption, which is the criminal practice with records made by criminals that did the plan, protected the storage workflow, criminals and results, and in the end try to set a misperception about the context of the crimes. As subsidiary information, it implies that the entire thing in a system like this has no reliability. It's all a big lie because you are all big liars. And one more time, it's on annual budget also as the systematic even by proofs we offered that implies by Chicago School neoclassic movement that such systematic mistakes in the way we have as aggression and violation are not aleatory but totally intentional. In other words, we are proving your criminal intent. In American judicial system, you can convicted by trial by jury, plea bargain, or confession, since confirmed by other proofs. And we offered all this in all situations. The results are always the same, and it's codified. Also, your position. We raised the rational architecture to prevent the cognitive bias and the personal decision, sometimes the conflict of interest by preparation of things as organization of a system by method, right? Quantifying reality by measure. And your reality is our law. It implies that you do not recognize the law or the guarantees of an individual. How do you consider that can be protected by something that do not exist in your field of perception? You will be an embassy 100% under the US regulation or the European regulation, right? Criminal system. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New